What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of NewOrleans.Basketball and NewOrleans.Network podcast. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrick Rattler. What's poppin' with you, bro?
What up, bro? Wild turn of events. Last time I talked to you, I said it was hot. And then I walked outside, and apparently we had a visit from the Night King because winter is here. And so, I'm freezing my ass off when I went to work this morning, which was quite the turn of events. And it kind of encapsulates just living in this city, man. You just never. You wake up one day, you just never know what to expect. But one thing you can expect is the Pelicans, and the Pelicans seem to be inevitable as we speak going on right now. And so I've been tweeting lately that, as we watch the Clippers kind of stumble back and the Pelicans kind of stumble forward, that is like the Jaws music, right? You just hear it every time the Pelicans play, just doing it. And I know them people in Clipperland are like, man.
They see it. They see it.
It's like, man, we know it's coming. So it seems like, that like everybody keeps talking about that's the most likely playoff scenario. It's like that's going to be one where maybe the people in LA will be coming to New Orleans to start that playoff series. It's coming, man. But anyway, how's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed. You're right. The weather can't make up its mind.
Bro, it's crazy. It's wild. It's crazy.
One way or the other, that might have something to do with the fact that it's March and it's madness time. So that being said, we almost here, man. Both tournaments about to kick off. I know you get the play-ins coming up. I know men's basketball is not at its peak right now. But that being said, who are a couple of players that at least you got your eye on going into the next couple of days and seeing what could pop off in the tournament? My Hogs, man.
I'm kind of looking at. So there's a guy from Nebraska. I sent them to you. I think they called him like the Japanese Steph Curry, and like this guy is incredible. Like he just gets up. He's incredible, and I always look for like when a tournament starts, like. Some of my favorite guys in the tournament has been like Jimmer Fredette at BYU. I loved watching Jimmer and his March Madness run. I loved watching Steph at Davidson kind of do what he did. And of course, Dwayne Wade is where I fell in love with the game of basketball. Him coming to New Orleans and beating Duke in what was then the New Orleans arena. But man, I just there's a couple of guys. This Zach Edey from Purdue, who seems like he's been in basketball forever. He plays center for the Canadian national team. You'd probably know him if you see him. He's about 7 foot, 100 feet tall. But I'm interested to see them, man. But listen, it is a wide open field, and of course, I will be watching that LSU women's basketball.
Oh yeah, the women's tournament. I feel like it's gonna be way better.
When Louisville and Haley getting her opportunity to beat Louisville, her former team, and then obviously getting up there, and Caitlin Clark is in that same bracket. So could it be a rematch of Angel versus Caitlin? And will Caitlin finally come in there and try to do some things? But I mean, listen, this is the best time. Thursday starts when like all basketball is all day long. The tournament plays from like 11 in the morning to late at night. And so it's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. Should get you riled up to get that back-to-back for the Pels getting started.
Yeah, no kidding at all. And before we get into the Pels, make sure you guys are locked in, following us on Twitter, on X, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO_Basketball, no E. Making sure you like an episode below. We try to get back to everybody's comments. We appreciate all the love that you guys send this way. We're going to be sending it right back to you covering this team. So Pelicans had a game tonight. They just defeated the Brooklyn Nets 104-91. Garrick, this is a different team. Like I think I'm ready to like say this is a different level of Pelicans. Everything from coaching to Zion to role players to Brandon Ingram. This is a different level. I think that the Pelicans are turned to. Like we talked about early in the season, like the Pels would have their lulls and flows, right? Like they would have a couple games that made you feel some way, and then they would have some games where it's like, who is on the court right now? And from the start of this game, like even Larry Nance hasn't had a double-double in like the entire season. But this man came out and asserted himself in a way and got everybody else to kind of assert themselves in the way. Well, like I'll just be honest with you, bro. It felt like the Pelicans were bullying the Brooklyn Nets. Like it felt like it was one of those times where you're playing in the yard versus your little brother or something like that. You realize, oh, he is not as big as me. So I'm just going to throw my weight, throw my athleticism around. And I understand that the Nets are a smaller, skinnier team. And so that's something you should assert yourself. But it was just kind of the cockiness in which the Pelicans played tonight. And so Zion starts the game in foul trouble 2 seconds in. But like you could tell, and I tweeted this out, I wasn't like mad that he got fouls because it was like this level of intensity on defense was like, okay, yeah, Cam Thomas, I know you got a bag behind you, but like that's nothing. Like I'm about to lock that up. And he got a couple fouls, but it was the way he kind of played. And when he got back in the game, well, the stats speak for themselves. So like, what did you see out of this game that made you feel that like, okay, the Pels are starting to get something going?
Yeah, this felt like a statement game, but it wasn't a statement to like the league. It was more of a statement to themselves, and a statement to the fans, and the statement to the mentality that, you know, when you know, we've talked about trap games all season long, right? Like some of the earlier games in the season where you would go into this game, you're like, oh, they're gonna beat this team, and then you struggle the entire time. And then you end up and you're like, wait, how did the Pelicans lose that game again? Recently, it's felt like the Pelicans have made it a point to say, okay, these teams don't belong on the floor with us. Mm-hmm. And tonight could have easily been one of those games where, look, this is the beginning of the road trip. You're going to play a surging young Orlando team, and then obviously with all the history of the Miami Heat. And what you just recently had, you know, Brooklyn is playing for nothing. They are in shambles right now. Their roster is in shambles. There's some interesting pieces. We've talked about Daron Sharp and Nick Claxton, but the team is just not doing well, right? The whole franchise. And so you could have very well came to this game and say, listen, you play your C+ game, and you could win this game. Well, when you play teams like this who don't have a lot to play for, but they do have a lot of guys that know how to score, right? Like you have Cam Thomas, you have Cam Johnson, you have Mikal Bridges, guys that like if you mess around, they could get 30 from here, 20 from here, and then all of a sudden you're in a close four-quarter game. But this game felt like the Pelicans were like, nah, not this version of Gail Benson's Pelicans, not this version. And from the get-go, it is from the start, Zion's intensity, right? That foul that he got to Cam Thomas to start off, it was him contesting, it was him being defensive, and being intensity, bringing that intensity on the defensive end. The second foul was him trying to set the screen and the dribble handoff. And that play is always tricky because you have to have patience to set the screen. And as the guy who's getting the ball, the guard or whoever it is, you have to let that play set up. Because if not, and Zion's moving at any point in time, is quick to get a foul. And you know it's the second, and it's it's the second foul early in the game. And when you get Zion's second foul, as a team, like the Nets came out, they started the game in a zone. You never ever see that. That is Kevin Ollie saying we are throwing everything at them today. This is not gonna happen. Zion is not happening tonight. Yeah. And when you get that second foul, you would think like the Nets would be like, okay, we could do it. We got this. And then like CJ gets 9 points, 3 straight threes in the first quarter, and Larry Nance is out there looking like prime Bill Russell. So like it's just the depth of this team is starting to meet all of the aspects of the team that seem to hinder this team a lot in previous seasons and previous iterations. They're all starting to coalesce, right? You're starting to get the talent to meet the effort, to meet the time on task, to meet health, and they're all coming together. These are like, there was always one aspect that was missing. You had the talent, but the health wasn't there. You had a little bit of health, but the structure wasn't there. The structure was there, but you didn't have the effort on the defensive end from the stars to lead this team. And this team is just, they're all competing. Trey Murphy got an offensive foul on a screener simply by fighting over screens. That is a good defensive play. A lot of the defensive things that the Pelicans were struggling with and are now like excelling with all fall from effort. And these guys are just competing, and there's effort there. And like we just saw from our commenter, the time on task, like everybody kind of knows what to expect from everybody now. And there's no longer times where we're like, well, can you get it back to point Zion? Because no, Zion is on the ball where he should be, where he always should have been. And everybody is just feeding off of that. And AD said it on the broadcast. When the defense feeds into the offense, this team is very difficult to stop, because not only do you not have a matchup with Zion, but you don't have a matchup for Zion's scoring. And then when you think you have a matchup for his scoring, he's passing the ball and he's hitting guys, and guys are all in the game because they all feel involved on both sides of the ball. And they are all tied in together. So the Pelicans right now are playing a level of basketball that we just haven't seen from a team in New Orleans in a long, long time. This team is even better than, I would say, that Pelicans team that beat Dame Lillard, that swept the Blazers and went to the second round. And what I mean by that is like that team competed, and it felt like that team belonged on the floor with a lot of teams. This team feels like it's competing, and it feels like it's better than a lot of the teams that they're playing on the floor. So it is a level of basketball and attention to details on both sides of the floor that if you have been watching the Pelicans and watching this franchise for the years and years that a lot of us have, you just don't get this level of intensity and this level of attention to detail. And we saw it against the weaker opponents. The Nets were a weaker opponent, but you can't say it when you did it against the Clippers team, and you can't say it when you did it against some of these other teams that you've done it against. So it is exciting. Today felt like, all right, this team is ready to go into this back-to-back and this Florida back-to-back and put something on tape that's going to make everybody excited to going into the playoffs.
Right. The thing I take away, I mean, Garrick, they left the starters out there up 20 with 2 minutes to essentially practice. Like, to practice half court. There's no other. The Nets had pulled their start. The game is out of hand. They literally left their starters to get out there and to practice in the half court execution game live, because, again, there's only 14 games left in the season. Like, that's when you know you're that much better than the team that you're playing against. The other thing that, like, really stood out to me, and you kind of hit the nail on it, it feels as if everybody kind of understood this is the next step in my, like, we talk about growth, and AD says it, growth not being linear. This is the next step that I need to be for this team, right? We talk about Herb. You got to be good on the corner three. Trey, you got to be able to do something more than just shoot. I don't know if you noticed, but, like, when there's a big out on Trey is quick to try to take them off the dribble, right?
That take he had when that spin move, I was like, wait, the shot didn't go in, but I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right?
Wait a minute.
I'm not calling for the Trey Murphy at the top of the key pick and roll every time, but he's getting comfortable there, right? And that's another source of offense that can somewhat create on his own. Like, he's had some nice playmates here and there, but not consistently create of his own. That's another source of offense. And so,
before you get off Trey, like in a span of like a minute on the broadcast, AD said, you know, Trey Murphy had an opportunity to it was like in transition, and he caught it and, like, you know, kind of gave it like a fake, like he was going to shoot, and he was able to drive to the rim. So AD was like, well, you know, Trey's 3-point shot allows people to close out on him, and he's able to dribble to the lane. And then, like a minute late, like in 45 seconds later, and I tweeted about this one, Trey, like, he faked like he was driving to the lane, and there was a help coming over, and then Trey Murphy flared out for the three. And he was like, well, Trey's ability to break guys off the dribble causes the help defender to come over. I was like, wait, so his 3-point shot makes you come out on him, and his drive makes the help defense come over. If that ain't the definition of a conundrum, I don't know what it is. And it is Trey is something, man. Trey is something.
Right. So if he's adding that next level to his game, the thing with Larry has always been he's selfless to a fault. So if he's supposed to be the center, if he's got a point guard on him, a lot of times he would pass the ball out, versus when JV gets a small on him or Larry gets a small on him, they should go score on their own. They have the mismatch. And so now Zion's playing defense, and Brennan's always been playing defense, and now he's taking it up a notch as well. And now he's getting better at the catch and shoot three and knowing when to pick his spots and throwing the he is the Zion. Like,
that's why I throw on the team.
If everyone's doing that extra notch, they are acting like the hunter versus the hunted, right? Like, they are the ones dictating the game. This is how you're gonna play based off who we have on the court. And like, that's, again, this is not just like the Nets game. This is like, okay, well, you did it versus the Clippers too. So like, if we're going to see at the end of this month, when you're playing the Celtics and you're playing the Thunder and you're playing some of these teams that, you know, they're in the same type of mindset and mode, if you're able to still control the game. And that's something that, again, I go back to, if they don't lose the lead in the last half of the fourth quarter versus the Celtics in Boston, I think everyone's talking about this team in a different mode now. But if they kind of keep it together then and continue on this trajectory, people will be like, well, they beat Boston and all that would kind of jump on it. So, you know, that brings to the question. I know the team is very inexperienced. Like, Zion has a grand total of 0 playoff minutes thus far in his career. The team has not won a playoff series as it's constructed. But like, if you watch the way the game is played when the Pelicans are playing at their best, which you always talk about, incredible lockdown defense, ball movement on the other end, and paint to great Zion creating open opportunities for everyone else. And then you have, as his co-star, someone who's really good at making contested shots. I'm sorry, but is that not the exact combination that you need to be successful in a playoff series, right? Like, again, I understand experience is a SOB, right? Like, if you got to get there, you got to learn through trials, you got to learn through failure, you have to get better. I understand that. But there's also an element to it, like, this is my style of game when I'm at my best, and it's just more unstoppable than yours. Where do you fit on, like, is this kind of what you need to be successful? And could you see the Pelicans making a run that, like, maybe people are not anticipating?
Well, I would venture to say they are. I mean, JJ Redick today was like, they can go to the finals.
It's crazy.
Stephen A. Smith was like, they can go to the finals. Yeah. Go ahead. Don't worry. My fellow Game of Thronian said, the North always remembers. Don't worry about that. So look, this is the thing with the Pelicans. And in a season where the top of the NBA is top of the West is filled with teams without experience, teams that you don't know a lot of. Obviously, Denver's the outlier. Not talking about Denver in this part of what I'm talking about. But the other teams, right? And then at some point, to your point, like you said, at some point, it does not matter what month Zion is playing basketball in. If you can't guard him in February and March, then you're not going to be able to guard him in April and May. So to that point, I agree. Another thing that has helped that I think is going to help the Pelicans in the playoffs and the way they've been playing is the Pelicans have been playing through contact all season long. They have been playing through terrible non-calls. They've been playing through, people getting beat up and fouled, and they found ways to win games and win that without being like the complainers, right? Like you see Zion talking to the ref, and you might see BI talking to the ref. You might see Herb get a tech every once in a while because he's frustrated with the calls that he's gotten. But what I think that does is we've already seen the NBA kind of tilt towards let's kind of rein back the scoring a little bit. Let's let them play. And we're not going to call this foul and then call that foul. Well, the Pelicans are already there. But when you get to the playoffs, it's ratcheted up. They let a lot of you got to earn your points in the playoffs. The Pelicans have been doing that all season long. So they are accustomed to playing through the pain and through the fouls and through the non-calls. And so that's going to help them. Another thing that's going to help them is the fact that throughout this season, they've kind of got adjusted to the way to play defense with the ways that the NBA is calling and non-calling. Zion picked up 2 early fouls in this game and had one in the first quarter and had one the rest of the game. They're learning how to play defense in a system, in a scheme. They're switching between zone and man. Yeah. Willie is pushing the right buttons. We're playing Larry and keeping JV still involved, but not relying so much of him on the block. In the center position. They've kind of come up with this on the fly defense that is just incredible. It is locking people down. You're holding teams to under 90 points. And the problem, like we were talking about the Knicks off the pod, and like the Knicks are doing the same thing, but it's like they're struggling to score. The Pelicans are putting up 115, 120 in their sleep, right? Like they didn't even, it's not even trying. So when you pair the fact that like they've been going through essentially playoff basketball as well as like that span of time where, obviously the Pelicans have made a little bit of room between them and the 6, but like every game, you have to win every game and treat every game. So you're already in the playoff, the playoff mentality. So you've already adjusted yourself to the playoff. And at the end of the day, you have the playoff. We talk about Zion being a question. And I think more of it is because like you're looking at him and you're like how I'm sure it can be done. And the Pelicans are not unbeatable. I just am very interested to see a game plan that beats Zion 4 times out of 7. You're going to have to show me that game plan. Experience be damned, and all of that. You're going to have to show me the game plan. And so I just think that, with the West as young as it is up at the top, and with, obviously in one-off games, you don't want to see Steph and LeBron. Obviously you don't. But I mean, like the teams are just, the Pelicans team is just so, like they have so many contributors versus some of these other guys. We watch these games and we're like, who is that guy? Where does that guy come from? We watched what game was it? The Suns and what were the Nuggets? It was a game we were watching and we were like, wait, that guy is guarding Bradley Beal. That guy is guarding Nikola Jokic like that. And it's like, it's not Herb, it's not Trey, it's not Brandon Ingram and things. And the last thing I want to talk about with Zion in this playoffs, what really is going to unlock the Pelicans in this playoff run is the fact that if Zion is going to be a good defender, that now adds another defender to this wing stop stable of defenders. And Zion doesn't have to be great defensively for the entire game. Now, he has been. But when we're in the playoffs, I mean, can you give me 2 or 3 minutes where you're guarding Kawhi because you're the strongest guy on the floor? And so Herb can go do the Paul George assignment or help Larry Nance or JV if James Harden gets them in the pick and roll yo-yo assignment. Like, if Zion is going to be added to this collection of these guys can defend your best player or defend your second best player, or whatever the case is, then that adds another level of defense to an already impressive defense. And so when you look at the rosters up and down the Western Conference, how many teams have a Herb Jones or a Dyson Daniels? But now you're talking about a 6'6" tank that flies through New York like Batman and can fly up and down the floor. Like, there's just not a lot of like plus defenders on these teams. And the Pelicans are looking to have 1, 2, 3 and Dyson and Najee and Herb, and then you throw in Jose. And if Zion is going to be a plus defender, and if Brandon Ingram is going to be a plus defender, and if Larry is starting to get some of his juice back from this season and getting into his rhythm as the playoffs come, that's just a lot of defense and a lot of questions on offense that you can't solve with 1 or 2 guys. And once you start taking 1 or 2 guys off of these offensive weapons for the Pelicans, it's going to be hard to defend them in the playoffs. So I do think, like, if the Pelicans get into this 4-5 matchup with the Clippers, and I've said it before, that matchup, I don't really think it matters who's the home or away. I think for your personal preference, you want to open the season, the postseason up at home, obviously. But both teams have won on both floors. I think that if they can get through that and have to face the OKC or Minnesota, now if it's Denver, that's a different story. But if you got OKC and Minnesota, and it's Minnesota without Cat, and it's Chet holding on for dear life, fighting for his life for JB and Zion, then I don't see why the Pelicans can't for sure get past the first round and probably, depending on that matchup, get past that second round. So we'll see. But this level of basketball, this brand of basketball that they're playing right now is definitely conducive to playoff wins.
Sure, I would agree with that as well. So the biggest thing that you mentioned, and we can move on, or that you did mention, is that they're learning to play through the contact. Like, we talk about Trey being a conundrum and Zion being a conundrum and Brandon Ingram being a conundrum because you're just bigger and more athletic than whoever is probably guarding you, or quicker and more athletic than whoever is probably guarding you. There's no reason why you need to settle for a bigger. I understand Brandon Ingram shoots like the 3rd most mid-ranges in the league. But sometimes just put your shoulder down and go through them. Zion's starting to learn the same thing. If you're not going to get the call and they're going to let it go both ways, well, this is going to be a fight. Poor Dennis Smith Jr., I don't know what he tried to do early in this game, like getting away. I don't know, something. He tried to do something, and he ended up flying backwards like 8 yards. And Zion's just standing over like, let me help you out, big dog. By the way, I'm going to the free throw line. Like, if Brandon Ingram was doing that too, right? Like, if they're doing that to that level and you're not looking for the foul because, I got to earn my fouls or B.I. does it the right way. Like, if you're already accustomed to that, like, that's your game. Like, you should live for those moments, which, again, the only opportunity you see Brandon Ingram in the playoffs, he looked pretty damn good. So I tend to agree with you when it comes to that. Now, what people would say in terms of, well, here are the downsides. Obviously, we talked about the pick and roll and not sure what you're going to do if you have an athletic big on the other side that can dominate the rebounds and Luka can throw lobs or whatever it may be. I think that's an issue. But the other part is like, well, they don't shoot a ton of threes. Well, what happens in the playoffs? The scoring goes down, right? Because everyone is more locked in on their assignments. Everyone is more locked in on defense. And from that end. And so, like, the question has always been with this team, well, the 2 best players don't work because neither one shoots a ton of threes. Well, okay, I could see that argument. But if you also happen to be really good at scoring 2-pointers at a rate that's like not normal, like 67%, like Zion's and things like that, Like, it almost catches up to. So, like, if you look at last season, the Pelicans were 29th in three-point attempts, and they were 15th in the NBA in three-point percentage. Well, this season, they're only 25th going into this game in three-point attempts, but they're 5th in three-point percentage. And so you got to look at, like, okay, well, if that's their biggest issue, they can have the off game like in Cleveland when no one can hit a shot. Well, on average, the Pelicans make about 12 threes a game. And if they're doing that, and they're doing that at a 28-6 record, on average, like, yeah, everyone can have a bad shooting game. That can happen to any team. But most times, the shots and the three-point shots are going to the three-point shooters, and in Trey and CJ and BI and all those things. And so if the biggest knock is, well, this team doesn't shoot enough threes, but most nights they shoot enough to win, and they're Zion is verging on historic efficiency from a guard at the goal. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, he's shooting every shot in the same spot, and there's nothing you can do. That is not normal. Like, that is an outlier to whatever statistic that you have. And so I kind of agree with
you. The Nets came out. The refs.
That was wild.
The Nets came out in a zone. They came out in a zone.
You would have thought you threw in the brackets and March Madness has already started because the team's starting the game in the zone. That was wild. So, like, I tend to agree with you that, you know, it's a pick your poison situation, and they're starting to expose them. Now, something that we need to talk about, because I think that there's been like for people who watch the team, there's been frustrations with Willie Green, some of the lack of adjustments, some of the lack of movements, the rotations, the lineup. We've even, you know, had picked our bargains here and there. But we've also said, well, you can't look at the success that this team is having and the growth that they're having and the things that they're doing, like setting franchise records every other night, and say that, well, Willie Green, the coaching staff, is not doing a good job. Like, you can't have it both ways. But as of late, and you mentioned it earlier about Willie kind of seeing the adjustment and making the right calls here and there, you're starting to see Willie Green adjust more on the fly. And so the same way it took this team time to grow and to mesh and to understand each other, it took this coach to understand what he had in his team, right? And so now you've played these people sparingly here and now, like Matt Ryan and Hawk, they are on the outside looking in. But again, something tells me that if you just threw them in a game in the series, they would buck at the opportunity to get open threes now. So I'm not that concerned about them. Obviously, Hawk seems like more of a rhythm guy. Matt Ryan seems like you could not play for like 3 months, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to score 9 points in 10 seconds. Like, he seems like that type of player. But, like, my question is, like, what is the biggest adjustment and growth that you've seen in Willie Green that gives you confidence going into a series versus the Clippers or whoever you might be matched up with?
Yeah, Willie has really shown me some growth and some things that I am pleasantly, you know, I'm happy with. And I mentioned a couple of episodes back that it was more of a opinion thing, or more of a what's your type of role player that you'd like to see around Zion, when I was saying that I'd like to see Hawk and Matt Ryan. And I still do think that eventually you're going to need that floor spacing. But credit to Willie Green, first of all, for understanding what buttons his team need to be pressed. And sometimes, you know, you have to, if you're going to live with someone, then you have to live with them, right? Like, you have to speak that kind of a belief and things into them, because you can lose them very quickly and easily. And with Jose and Najee, I mean, Najee has played. You talk about like the best contracts, right? You talk about Herb Jones and his contract being among the best. When you talk about production versus contract
value, yeah.
I think that we and a lot of like Pelicans fans and you get spoiled with Najee, because Najee has something about him that allows him to compete at very high levels, and it's infectious. And you know, sometimes he has his bad games and he does things, and it drives us all mad sometimes when he's pulling out the Dykeman Najee when you don't need the Dykeman Najee.
Yeah.
But for him to be where he is and the way he contributes on a nightly basis, and we're talking about like the 14th highest paid, 13th highest paid player on the team. And Jose is the same way, the defensive, kind of like the defensive captain of the team after Herb, when he's the guy coming in and making sure that everybody has the same level of intensity and he's bucking people up and things like that. But for Willie to say, you know what, even through your faults, I'll let, because you forget how young a guy like Jose is, and even Najee has been in the league for a while, but like he still has some things about, some quirks about him. For him to say, you know what, I'm going to let you grow through that and grow with this team and their rotation, I mean, and their growth as well. You're a part of that. It just speaks well to, you know, to him. And when you think about the 13, 14 highest paid player on any other team, they are not contributing in ways that Jose and Najee are. And that's a credit to Willie Green stepping in and doing things. The next thing, Willie has been putting his foot down and drawing lines in the sand. And we've always talked about, if you're going to bench, you know, Trey earlier in the season, earlier in his career, you're going to bench Hawk for doing things that, you know, the out of control or doing whatever. You're going to take him and sit him for a couple of games, right? And when Nickel was here, and Nickel was the same way, right? If you're going to do that with those young guys, you have to be able to do that for everybody. Everybody has to be held to the same accountability. And there have been times this season, in this recent stretch, where CJ has sat during the end of games, where JV has sat for long stretches of time. You know, we saw Willie and Jose kind of have a little, you know, intensive discussion on the side, and camera pan back to the game, pan back, you see him hugging him out. Jose comes back in, makes some plays. When you are carrying yourself as the coach and making sure that everyone is being held accountable for their play, for their lack of play, for their mistakes, you know, for the unforgivables, right? And you're breaking the non-negotiables. When you're holding everybody accountable for that, then everybody understands that this is bigger than them, right? That everybody understands that there is something else that we're playing for, as opposed to, oh, we're just here to feed Zion, or we're just here to give CJ gonna take his shots. I don't want to take my shots because I know I'm gonna pass up shots and be timid because I know I got to give it to CJ. And if CJ misses shots, then he ain't gonna get sat down. And if everybody is being held accountable, and that is the mark of a coach that is respected and understood. Joe Mazzulla has done it. Mike Malone has done it. We've seen Steve Kerr bench Klay Thompson for moving forward. Like, this is the rotation. Like, the best coaches, sometimes you have to do that in order to make sure you keep the main thing the main thing. And Willie Green has done that. He has pressed the right buttons. And when you look at a team that has so little time on task between all the people, the major components, the major pieces of the core, and you find yourself surging late in a season like this, it is a credit to the players and the coaching staff. And one other thing I'm gonna give Willie Green credit is that he has shown the ability to give up some of the things that he held so tightly and so closely that he just would not. Jay Borrego has come into this office and say, listen, Zion is on the ball. We're going to put some shooters out there. CJ, you're going to shoot a lot of threes. And being able, listen, as a person that has coached men's league, listen, men's league is not the NBA. It is not college. But I coach some like really good, talented players who have played overseas, players who have played in the NCAA tournament, players who have played in the TBT. I have coached a lot of these guys. One of the best things about coaching, and it's one of the best things that I've talked to you about, is self-awareness. And self-awareness sometimes leads to the best thing you can do as a coach is to listen sometimes and to follow sometimes. Sometimes a leader has to follow because they don't know the best thing, everything about everything. And that is what Willie Green is showing me. He is showing an ability to listen to his players, listen to the coaches, the offensive minds and guys. And he's able to maintain that high defensive intensity that he demands and that he expects out of this team, while also unlocking this offense by letting other people come in and say, you know what, maybe we should give that guy who they can't stop the ball, and then we'll just kind of invert things around and different things. Now, he's not perfect. He has things to learn. There are still things that happen on the floor that you're like, I wish we could just, can we do something else? But he is showing tremendous growth. He is showing that he is tapped into this team, and this team is tapped into him. And the best thing you can say about Willie Green right now, it seems like this team is playing for Willie Green as opposed to just like tuning him out or just listening to the things he's saying, go out and execute it. Like these guys are running through screens. These guys are fighting over screens and fighting for boards and diving on the ground. And you don't do that unless you believe in the coach and his philosophy going forward.
All you have to do is go back to when the Pelicans were down in the play-in tournament and they got a freaking fight conversation.
Mm-hmm.
There is a difference, like you mentioned, of the coach that you respect. You know, you show the manager, the supervisor that you respect, that you show up to work, you do your job for, versus the guy that you do anything for, right? From the beginning, there are strengths and weaknesses. Some coaches are X and O's coaches. Some coaches are galvanizing coaches. Some coaches are both, but it takes a little while to get better. Greg Popovich didn't start with every answer in the playbook. Like, it didn't start that way. You're going to have strengths and weaknesses. You got to get better in different areas. But always give me the guy that people will do anything for and see if you can fill in the rest. Like you see it, again, shout out to the Saints, Sean Payton. Like the team would do anything for that type of coach, right? If you get the right type of players to follow the right type of coach, that is the perfect match moving forward. And so again, while things may not be perfect, there was always a good coach in there, right? And so a part of being a good coach, and we can top it off right here, is figuring out what you do best. We talked about it. B.I. was the guy that got Willie Green. When Willie Green was at the finals, who was he sitting next to? Brandon Ingram and Herb Jones, not Zion Williamson, right? So the guy that got you to this point. But at some point, and Zion had to earn himself. You made a really good point. It's one thing to hold Jose and CJ on the counter. It's another thing to hold the superstar. I mean, you know how the NBA is. It is a superstar-driven league. Not coach, not GM, not front up. It is a superstar-driven league. It is another thing to tell that person, you got to be the guy that's jumping on the ground. You got to be the guy that's giving up your shots. You got to be the guy that's better on this end so that you can give other people the ball. Like, you got to be that guy. And not only did Zion buy in this year, and you see it in every facet, but Brandon Ingram is doing it too. And if you get a guy that on every level, everybody is on the same page, that is when you know you are finding the best things out of your team. Another part of that is, like, again, you got to see it. You got to give people the opportunity to fail. You got to give people the opportunity to succeed. While, yes, Jose and Algie are not the shooters Matt Ryan and that Hawk are, they did improve their three-point percentage from last year so that at least they are hitting more than they were at that perspective. And those guys are not getting that many shots in the first place. So at least you know you're getting defense every night, right? You're getting something on that end. But to your point, when I look at the best lineups for this team, this is crazy to say, but I don't think CJ is a part of it. I think that it's Zion, it's Brandon Ingram, it's Trey Murphy, and it's Herb Jones. And then it's either Larry Nance, because of his ability to switch, and now he's being more assertive scoring on the offensive side of the ball and taking advantage of his mismatch. And then, to be honest with you, bro, I think the other one is Dyson Daniels. Because if you remember when CJ got hurt and Dyson had to start, even though he wasn't making shots like that, that was a hell of a lineup. And that was when you were like, oh, nobody can score on this team. And so while they've been impressive defensively lately, I think there's another level to get to if Dyson returns to 100%, and again, next season and far beyond, if this team ever gets a rim protector, I don't know how the hell you're going to score. So, again, you made a really good point. Again, this team is building in a way that just seems different from previous iterations of this team and previous years of the team. But as you walk into, again, a matchup versus the number 4 team in the East and another Miami's trying to figure out their way, but it's Miami. So you always – and you know the bad blood that's there. You always got to keep a heads up. What do you got left for the people? What are you looking for?
As always, you never know what people are going through, so give someone a smile today. Yeah, the Pelicans are really they are becoming a team that a lot of teams are going to be like, I just not today. I just don't feel like dealing with them. And it's starting from the top, talking about Willie Green and James Borrego, all the way down to, like I said, Najee and Jose. Everybody seems like they're in lockstep. And it looks like that, they're building a wall or something. Orlando and Miami is going to be a tough back-to-back, but I think you can go 2-0. I think you can go 2-0. I think you can. Miami is struggling. They couldn't get over 90. They scored 91 points against Joel Embiid's 76ers team, who they themselves cannot score. And now they're like, Duncan is going back to Miami to have a back specialist, and Kevin Love is out, and Tyler Hero. You can win that game. Orlando is going to be tough. Those dudes are balling right now. Jamal Mosley has those guys clicking. They're playing defense. They have two young stars, kind of similar to the Pelicans and their front court stars. But I just think that the Pelicans are so deep, because even if Paolo and Franz play Zion and BI to a stalemate, give me CJ, Trey, JV, Herb. Give me those guys over those other Orlando players. But I think you could go 2-0. And listen, if you can get both of those games, although it's not a Western Conference team, and those are statement. That's a statement. If you can get both of those, another statement is being made that they went to Florida and kicked Florida's ass like Ohio State in their heyday. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But as always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NewOrleans.Basketball, no E. That's on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your social medias. And most importantly, subscribe to NewOrleans.Basketball. And we'll see you guys next time.